Over a year ago, a mass movement of citizens, not part of the political party structure and not part of the trade union structure either, decided that they'd had enough, that the economic developments of French capitalism were unacceptable. The item that triggered it was another one of those small events, insignificant in their own dimension, but made by history into turning points. The president, Mr. Macron, decided that, having delayed for a long time, he would do something about the climate change, that unimportant event that has nothing to do with the fires that are destroying Australia, for example. He decided he would do something, not a lot, something that looked good on TV, and that he would pay for it by raising the taxes on fuels that make the trucks and cars go in France and so on. And the French people who support doing something about climate change decided this was one straw that broke the back of their toleration. They weren't going to have it. Of course, do something about the climate, but not on the backs of people who have seen their social programs, their jobs, their incomes, their benefits taken away. They wouldn't have it. And so we've had a year and several months now of what came to be known as the Yellow Vest movement in France. Hundreds of thousands of people in cities across the country, not just in Paris, going out week after week, particularly on Saturdays when they were out of work, to show that they were angry, that they wanted changes. They wanted that tax removed, but they were angry at a lot of things. So that when, after saying he would never budge, Mr. Macron was humiliated and withdrew the tax, Yellow Vests won that one, they kept going, because by the time he moved, they knew that their grievances went way beyond that particular tax. And they had to do with everything that has happened to them over the last 10 years. They never recovered from the crash of 2008. The rich people did, the corporations did, but the mass of the French people didn't. And they are honest enough to face it and to say to one another, it's time for us to do something. There will not be business as usual in this country, they said, so long as business as usual, governed by Mr. Macron, gives them the raw deal of not only bringing the crisis on them in 2008, but giving them austerity afterwards, while the rich recovered with the help of government, that is, the taxes paid by the people. And they made it clear. They'd stand in the intersections. They'd stand in front of the churches and the schools. You could not get away from their message. Then it escalated. The government thought, as those Yellow Vest demonstrators got fewer in number, they could just wait them out, a tactic governments like that usually use. But they were wrong, just like Mr. Macron has been wrong all along. He thought he had beaten them. And so at the beginning of this year, he came forward with a new plan. This one used the following fakery. France has 42 different systems for pensions for their workers. And so he said, I am going to modernize and upgrade and reform. We shouldn't have 42. We should have 1, 2, or 3 that are systematic and treat everybody fairly. An obvious idea, no one believes this man anymore. They saw the risk that this reform was the mask for cutting their pensions. And as if to prove them right from the beginning, Mr. Macron proceeded to include in his pension reform raising the age when you become eligible for a pension in France from the current 62 years of age to 64. Let's be real clear what this means. For decades, French workers put money out of their weekly wages into the pension. What you're saying is, having loyally put money in on the expectation they could retire at 62, you're going to make them wait 2 years. When asked why is he doing this to a working class in France that has had a hard time in the 10 years since the system fell apart on them, he answered, well, we need to make France competitive in the world. We need to have more products without having to pay extra for them, and that we're going to solve by delaying people's retirement. And the French people again said, no, Mr. Macron, you're not going to do that. You want to make French products more competitive in the world so people in the world will buy more of them? Bring down the price. And here's how you can do that, Mr. Macron. You can lower the salaries paid to top executives. You can lower the dividends out of profits that are paid to shareholders, the tiny percentage of the French people that own shares. That way you'll save a bundle and you can lower the price. In other words, you can improve France's economic performance and competitivity without hurting the mass majority of the people. In fact, taking a little away from those at the top who can most afford it. Oh no, said Mr. Macron, that'll never happen. I will be steadfast. The union said okay, and on December 5th, they declared a general strike. 3 out of the 4 national unions led the strike, invited the Yellow Vests to join them, which they did, invited the students of France to join them, which they did, led by the transportation unions, those who work the subways and the trains. They started a strike on December 5th, and as of this report, it's still going. Along the way, they said, Mr. Macron, this strike will stop transportation across the Christmas season, which it did, across the New Year holiday, which it did. You're not going to wait us out, and you're not going to break us down. On the 11th of January, Mr. Macron withdrew the pension delay from 62 years to 64. Workers on the streets won. Establishment politicians lost. Every working class in every country ought to think long and hard about what the French workers did and what they could accomplish. Because the same imposition on working people from the same kind of established government, and Mr. Trump is a perfect example.
We'd like to thank Richard Wolff for allowing us to partner with him on this series. We've been fans of his work for some time and find that Economic Update does a fantastic job of explaining concept economic theories to the layman. Of course, economic theory in general can always use a little more spice, so that's where we come in. We're a pair of lefty comedians over on YouTube and Twitch, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please check out our work as well over at weareserfs.com. That's weareserfs.com. And thanks again, Professor.